She's a brick house. I don't even know who I'm talking about. In what may look like it came from the Army of Thieves and Army of the Dead series of films, just thanks to the filming style, Brick is its own standalone story that just happens to be releasing on Netflix, and it stars Matthias Schweighofer. Tim and Olivia awake trapped in their apartment behind an impenetrable Jenga-looking wall which has materialized overnight. And they're not alone. The entire building and its residents seem to be enclosed. Without any chance of outside help, they must band together to find a way out. Matthias Schweighofer returns to Netflix once more, and this time he plays a computer programmer who is stuck in his apartment with his wife after they wake to find no escape thanks to this futuristic-looking wall that's made up of randomly shaped cubes. To make matters more stressful for the couple, they're not exactly in a great space relationally, so there's existing underlying tension that this new problem heaps stress on. Now, the reason I mentioned the Army of movies is that this features a shallow depth of field for many of its shot selections. Now, thankfully, this style, it's not utilized throughout the entirety of the storytelling, but it does hamper the ability to see characters and scenes, creating this illusion that the perspective we're watching is having difficulty seeing, but it's not explained through any actions or dialogue. Aside from the sometimes blurry surroundings, though, the camera does an excellent job of creating the sense of confinement and claustrophobia, despite the apartment being rather spacious. Our main characters, they're resourceful and intelligent, combining Schweighofer's Tim's computer knowledge with Rubio Fee's Olivia's architectural expertise. And sure, this is the perfect pairing of character know-how for a story that traps individuals inside a building surrounded by what appears to be cyberblocks. Now, sometimes the story needs a small hand to just help plot progression, but thankfully, though, just because they're smart and skilled, that doesn't mean that they're fully equipped emotionally or physically for what they may encounter. Now, at its heart, this is a mysterious thriller with just a touch of sci-fi. And what we end up getting is sort of a compressed Lord of the Flies or Lost scenario, where multiple strong personalities need to work together to solve a common issue, but they can't agree due to personal biases and stubbornness. And those two story examples, they're only meant to elicit an image of arguing and infighting within a small group who ultimately share a goal, but are having difficulty working through all of their differences. And to make the plot more engaging, Tim and Olivia finally figure out a way to visit other apartments through the walls and the floors so that they can hopefully work their way out of the building. Now, I love that through this natural progression, we're introduced to a few groups of people, all freaked out and then wary of the other ones. In this suspense, it allows for heightened emotions that lead to conflict, sometimes verbal, other times physical. Either way, though, this elevated anxiety works to keep the storytelling taut. One person Olivia and Tim encounter is Marvin, played by Frederick Lau. Now, he had some levity as well as uncertainty because he's a bit unhinged and impulsive. His dynamic starts out like it will just be antagonistic within the narrative, but it ends up providing heart and softness when it's unexpected. Now, I appreciate the story momentum in this, consistently creating urgency and an undefined layer of dread that works to make the hour and 40 minutes just fly by. The pacing is such that it evenly distributes the apprehensive thrills with quieter moments of emotional drama, allowing that flow to just progress smoothly without feeling slow while also not cheating us out of story connection. And I do like the problem-solving aspect of the story, introducing this sort of puzzle for the characters, and then in turn for us, where we work to see if clues are presented that are going to lead to the solution. I don't think, though, that the story is as clever as it thinks it may be when it comes to some of these mysteries. I mean, certain aspects, they feel more telegraphed than they should, which breaks some of the tension and then creates a feeling of impatience where we want the movie to confirm what we already know. I don't think it reduces the excitement or the shock in some of the moments, but for a couple of reveals, they're pretty obvious. I was a bit surprised at the amount of melancholy contained within the story. Once we get to know Tim and Olivia a bit, we know to anticipate at least some sorrow and then strife. But the story also uses the heightened emotions of the residents and then the inability to escape to add situations that are sad, even heartbreaking. And while the film does present us with a solid resolution and conclusion, it still has this lingering feeling of despondency. I'm not saying it's devoid of hope, but once we reach the end, we see how dire everything is. Overall, I had fun with this. Brick isn't groundbreaking in concept when it comes to trapped people looking for an escape, but the characterizations are adequately developed for the story that's being told and become engaging thanks to palpable, anxious tension that's created through claustrophobia and the unknown. The pacing works to keep the plot progressing, enhancing the thrills that come along with the uncertainty of survival and the dread of sketchy strangers. The mystery, it's not as clever as it could be, and the shallow depth of field is distracting. But thanks to enjoyable performances and a quick runtime, Brick is an easy and sometimes stressful watch. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and then a bunch of violence. I give Brick 4 out of 5 couches. And it's not groundbreaking, but it is entertaining. Have you watched any good tense thrillers lately? I'd love to get some recommendations in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.